Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Today, we're getting esoteric. We've come a long way, months and months. We now deserve to go more deeply into the Leela. So that's what we're going to do today. Go more deeply into the Leela, and in our endeavor to understand the effects of Yogamaya, we're going more deeply into the Leela, explaining all these amazing things that happen in the Leela. Hare Krishna. And first we'll begin with Kirtan. Chaitanya Sada Hari. Hari Hari. Hari Hari Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Radha. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kupijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Kupijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Kupijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Kupijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Kishoranandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Shodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Taigo Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So now Facebook is making me, they won't let me open up until I write a title. So I wrote a title. Yogamaya in Krishna Leela, Esoteric Truths about Yogamaya. And that's what we're going to talk about. Although I think I might have given that same title to Monday's class, which then is going to make it hard for you to distinguish what's what. Excuse me. hard for you to distinguish what's what. Which glass is which. Anyway. Be prepared today to learn something you may not know. Be prepared to get confused. And we will try to resolve the confusion. Yogamaya is a vast energy, so not easy to understand. So Nadia, I had sent the document to paste the quotes to Christe. She has them. Okay. All right, fasten your seatbelts. It's time to take off into some interesting discussions. Excuse me. I'm trying to do something impossible right now. Well, it became possible. Okay. To bring up the document, and then I have to remember where we left off. Which is not, I didn't mark it, so I definitely don't want to skip anything, and sometimes in not skipping anything, we end up rereading something, which is, of course, not a problem. I think. Getting closer. Does anyone know? Do you know, Christe? We're going to end up reading this whole document over. Oh yeah, we read the Leela of Lord Chaitanya giving gold to his mother. We figured it was like 3 months' worth of salary in today's currency. And that happened regularly. Yeah, okay, I think I remember. Okay, I'm on page 64. Begins Unlimited Universes. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat, if you're Bengali. Translation: Unlimited universes are bewildered by Maya, the shadow of Lakshmi, Saraswati, and other internal potencies of the Lord. The shadow or the external manifestation of Lakshmi, Saraswati, who are manifestations of Yogamaya. Commentary. This is, I believe the commentary is by, actually I'm not sure if it's the devotee's commentary. No, Sanatana Goswami. Yogamaya removes, I believe Sanatana Goswami. Yogamaya removes the covered and thrown conditions born from the conditioned souls enjoying propensity, and assists the conditioned souls in achieving the unalloyed service of Krishna. We did read this. Covered and thrown, these are the two conditions of Maya. Our consciousness is covered, and then we're put under her clutches and then moved by the modes of nature, so thrown around. When this same Yogamaya is accepted as the object of enjoyment by persons who are averse to the Lord, she immediately bewilders, punishes, and sends them to the prison house, this material world. The conditioned souls in the material sky, which is their field of enjoyment, are eligible for being covered by ignorance due to their propensity for temporary enjoyment. So, that's it. Sometimes it's explained this way. It sounds awkward to say they're eligible. because that's what happens. But eligible means they could always choose not to be. But once you come down, then you're qualified to be in ignorance. Since the principles of ignorance, abomination, and interruption are absent in the eternal abode of the spiritual sky, even though Yogamaya has the propensity for favorable service to the Lord, due to the enjoying spirit of the conditioned souls who are averse to the Lord, she bewilders them by creating illusions that are unfavorable for the service of the Lord. As we've talked about this a lot. There has to be, if you see reality, then you'll serve Krishna. So you have to see illusion, not to serve Krishna. So she creates an illusion which is favorable for not serving Krishna, or unfavorable. Favorable for material activity. Maya and her opulences, who are like shadows of the Lord's spiritual energies, such as Lakshmi and Saraswati, spread a network of nescience, which is converse to spiritual knowledge, by awarding mundane knowledge to the adverse conditioned souls who are wandering throughout the universe. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you want to enjoy Maya, you are awarded mundane knowledge. Maya, the external energy, and her opulences, who are the shadows of Mahalakshmi, the internal potency of the Lord in the spiritual sky, and who bewilder the averse conditioned souls, are also bewildered on seeing the Lord's supreme opulences as they constantly engage in the service of the Lord while considering themselves the fully dependent maidservants of the Lord. So, as we've discussed, everyone's bewildered. It's just a question of what you're going to be bewildered by. In the mood of maidservants, they serve the Lord for his ultimate satisfaction. And to create further illusion for the living entities who are averse to the Lord, she is seen from the material point of view as Maya, the bestower of the fruits of work. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7, verses 4 through 6, he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy. This is described in Vyasadeva. It's interesting. Here's Krishna, and then you can see Maya. Okay, now I can see there's a difference, and I can make a choice. He could see the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. That's from the first canto, 7th chapter, famous verse. So we did read this. We did discuss this. You may remember I mentioned how easily it is to become absorbed in material knowledge, and you can study some aspect of the material world and get very absorbed in that. Actually, you could spend your whole life studying one thing, talking about one thing, and being completely absorbed in thinking about that one thing. And so that's how Maya works. And it's described here that Maya has a covering potency. So covering means that there's things that exist you don't see because it's covered to you. So you can be so absorbed in your world and your reality, and you can deny the existence of so many things that you don't see because you're covered. And so it's kind of a double whammy, a double illusion, because you don't see it. Because you're covered, you don't see it, and because you don't see it, you don't believe it. And because you don't see it and don't believe it, you remain covered or become more covered, and then become more convinced it doesn't exist, so you don't make any effort to uncover what could be beyond the cover, and you stay covered. And when you're covered, the consequence of that is you engage in material activity, which are not entirely under your control because you're making choices, but those choices are putting you under the modes of nature. Then the modes of nature are acting upon you. So you're covered and you're thrown. So it's nice to understand the action of Maya, because if you want to stay in Maya, then you're going to remain somewhat in ignorance, if not entirely, and thrown around. That's the consequence to make that decision. Well, I want to enjoy without Krishna. Okay, that's fine. Your knowledge will be covered and you'll be at the mercy of the modes of nature, which means the mercy of your mind and senses. And to the degree you're Krishna conscious, that's not going to happen. And when you're perfectly Krishna conscious, then there's no covering. And there's no control. So, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is yours. I advise you to make a good choice. Choose Krishna. Choose Yogamaya, not Mahamaya. But if you choose Mahamaya, don't complain if you suffer. Because Mahamaya's job is to cause you problems. A lot of times we complain about the material world, but it's okay to recognize the existential nature of this world, but also remember that when we're complaining about it, we made the choice to be here. So maybe you could complain about your choice. That might be better. Okay. Now we're going to continue reading. And I didn't know where we're reading from, but I'm assuming this is a continuation of Chaitanya Bhagavat. In incarnations such as Matsya, the words Matsyadi Rupa refer to the sentiment of desiring to kill the demons. Krishna likes to fight. That's what's being said here. Just as actors, while remaining in their original dress, accept and give up sentiments as either hero or heroine, similarly, one should know that the same also applies to the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, Bhagavad Gita 7.25 states, I am covered by Yogamaya and not exposed to anyone and everyone. In other words, Krishna, he acts through the agency of Yogamaya. He's acting in various ways. Acting is Leela, so he'll take the position to fight, as the hero, or in the case of Ram Leela, it looks like he could have lost, or in the case of Braj Leela, sometimes Krishna's upset. Radharani mistreats him, so he takes different positions. He's acting by the influence of Yogamaya. In the Padma Purana Uttarakhanda, it is said, the yogis see Lord Janardana on the strength of their devotional service. He never appears before those on the non-devotional path. No one who is angry or envious can see him. And envy, and you might think, well, I'm not envious. No, it means envious, not only of Krishna, envious of anyone. And so we should never think that I can have feelings for people here that aren't somewhat reflected in those same feelings or emotions towards Krishna. At least we know for sure that Srila Prabhupada said envy of anyone is a manifestation of envy of Krishna, and love of anyone is a manifestation of love of Krishna. And you might say, no, I'm not envious of Krishna, I'm just envious of this person. But the reality is you can't be envious of this person without that envy originating in your envy of Krishna. Or you can't hate someone without some hatred towards Krishna, and you're thinking, well, of course I don't hate Krishna. Well, think again. If we didn't hate Krishna, we wouldn't be here. This is the qualification for taking birth. If I loved Krishna, I would have gone back. So, when we're offensive or critical or envious or jealous or whatever, we often take it kind of like, well, it's just the way I am. I'm a conditioned soul, and I'm a work in progress. All right, that's fine, but remember, understand, don't make an excuse for it, but understand that has its origins in our envy of Krishna, our hatred of Krishna. So that is a sobering thought. And if that thought doesn't sober you, I don't know what will. Okay. No one who is angry or envious can see him. And Srimad Bhagavatam states, quote, "To the wrestlers, Krishna appeared as a thunderbolt." These conclusive statements confirm that the form manifested by the Supreme Lord before the demons is not his original form, but an illusory form. Did you know that? If one sees the original form of the Lord, his envious nature is destroyed. Therefore, in order to diminish the burden of the earth, the Supreme Lord gave up only that form by which he annihilated the demons. He did not appear again in that form. The form of the Lord that is seen through the medium of devotion is Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect. In other words, demons can't see Krishna's form. And the form that is said here, he took an illusory form, at least illusory for them, to kill them. And as it's being said, if they actually saw Krishna as he is, they wouldn't want to kill him. So they couldn't be seeing Krishna as he is because, and I think that's obvious, isn't it? I'm sure you must have thought of this before, right? These demons, these asuras are coming to kill Krishna, and you probably were thinking, but couldn't they tell he was Krishna, or couldn't they see how beautiful he was, and wouldn't their heart melt when they saw him, and wouldn't all their envy go out of the heart? And the answer to all those questions is yes, 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 but they didn't see him. They couldn't see him. They weren't qualified to see him. So Krishna manifested a form according to their vision, which was a material form, at least to them. And so here it's being said that when Krishna left this world, it looked like he left a form. He said, but the form he left was that same form that he shows to the non-devotees, not his real form. And so they could never understand who Krishna is. It's just so interesting, isn't it? It's like, I have proof that he's not God because look, he left a form, but the fact is that's not actually him. Interesting, right? I mean, don't try to cheat Krishna. You're not going to be successful. Take my word for it. The form of the Lord that is seen through the medium of devotion is Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect. That is why the word aja is used. Ja means unborn. Therefore, as an actor or magician dressed as a fish to kill a crane that eats fish, takes the form of a fish in order to create an impression in the minds of people that he is a fish. And as soon as the crane is killed, he immediately gives up the temporary form of fish. Similarly, although Lord Krishna Chandra is aja, devoid of birth like ordinary living entities, he killed the demons to diminish the burden of the earth with his illusory form manifested before the mundane vision of the materialist. After killing these demons, he, the unborn Lord, also gave up his mundane illusory form. But the previously mentioned statement of Bhagavad Gita, Yogamaya Samambrita, that I'm covered by Yogamaya, actually means his body is covered by a reflection of illusory energy, just as a snake is covered by skin. So that's beautiful because I think all of us, at least I did, when I first read this book, not this book, when I first read the verse, but maybe not the first time I read it, but after I understood something about Krishna consciousness, when I read 725, and Krishna says, I'm not manifest to the non-devotees, I'm covered by my eternal creative potency, Yogamaya. And I thought, misprint, Krishna is covered by Mahamaya. And he's covered by Yogamaya to the devotees. But this verse was describing how he's not manifest to the foolish people. So I thought that must be a misprint. It's Mahamaya. Krishna's covered. Mahamaya covers Krishna. So I'm going to read this last sentence again because it explains. It clearly explains this. It's sometimes difficult. Krishna, okay, he's covered by Yogamaya for Leela, but he's covering non-devotees for Yogamaya. But it's also for Leela. But it's also in reciprocation of what they want to see. So I want to read this again. He, the unborn Lord, also gave up his mundane illusory form. But the previously mentioned statement of Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Yogamaya samamvritaha, means I don't reveal myself to the fools. I'm covered by my Yogamaya potency. Actually means his body is covered by a reflection of the illusory energy, just as a snake is covered by skin. So yeah, I'm covered by my Yogamaya potency. So by my Yogamaya potency, you see me as an ordinary person. You don't see me as Krishna. And I think that's obvious because, as we said, if anyone sees Krishna as Krishna, that's pretty much the end of their material life. And so the only way they can continue is to be covered by Yogamaya. Even you could say that about seeing a pure devotee. If you have a soft heart and are open, when you see a pure devotee, it, we could say, damages your material prospects. That's a funny way of saying it. Your heart becomes purified and something changes, right? But many people see a pure devotee and nothing happens. So those who saw Krishna and nothing happened meant that Krishna covered himself by Yogamaya because they believed Krishna was ordinary. So that's what they got to see. That's what he was showing them. So when Krishna says Yogamaya, in this sense, it does mean Mahamaya, because here it said he's covered by a reflection of the illusory energy. So it's, there's Krishna, an illusory form of Krishna, but the cowherd boys weren't seeing an illusory form of Krishna. Illusory form. Is that clear? Is that clearly clear? Okay. If it's not clear, just let me know. If it's not clear, it means you're in Maya, because you can't see clearly. Yeah. Okay. Prabhupada, sometimes I fall into Maya. Prabhupada, you're always in Maya. Sometimes you fall into Krishna. One of the funniest things you'll ever hear Prabhupada say. So, Krishna Karshani says, I have doubts. If we can choose when we are a conditioned state, how a person can make a choice being covered by illusion. Yeah, it's a good program. Good question. The more you allow the illusory energy to control you, the less choice you have. So you have the most choice in goodness, you have less choice in passion, and you have the least choice in ignorance. So if you choose or allow yourself to be controlled by ignorance, then your willpower diminishes due to the effect of ignorance. So then it's harder because you're more controlled. But because the jiva by nature has independence, in other words, you're always by nature, you always have choice by nature. So even in the mode of ignorance, you have choice. It's just very restricted, but you can exhibit it. Just like an alcoholic who's addicted to alcohol has a very difficult time giving it up. But when he hits rock bottom or goes below rock bottom, then he might just decide to turn himself into some rehabilitation program. So he made that choice. And it's difficult to make that choice, for sure, being so much covered by ignorance. But you always have independence. It's just harder to use it. But there's never a point like when you get so much into the mode of ignorance that you completely lose your free will, but because it's constitutional. It's your nature as Jiva Tattva. You always have it. You know, it's kind of like you're carrying a lot of weight, so it's hard to move. And Tamagun is a lot of weight, and Rajagun is weight also, but it's less weight. So it's harder to get things done. That's the idea. So that's why we say you should live a sattvic life, because in Sattvagun, everything will be easier, materially and spiritually. Like in Sattvagun, you can make choices and stick to them. You can make vows and stick to them. In other modes, it's more difficult. But Sattva is where you have the greatest amount of determination. Sattva is where you have the greatest amount of willpower. So, if we go back to the original choice, then we can say, well, I'm choosing to act in a certain way. And once I make that choice, then I fall under the influence of one of the three modes of nature. And those modes of nature start forcing me to act in a certain way. But you can't say, I'm not responsible. It's the modes of nature that are responsible for my action, because you can always choose to not allow yourself to be forced to act by those modes of nature, which for people who aren't on a spiritual path doesn't really happen that much. They just make a choice, puts them in certain modes of nature, and those modes of nature affect them until they realize that maybe they're making choices that aren't good and they want to make other choices, and they start exhibiting more free will and making proper choices. So if you make lifestyle choices, behavioral choices, which are sattvic, then it keeps you in sattvagun, and then sattvagun keeps influencing you. But if you make a free will choice to act in the mode of ignorance, and then you throw yourself into ignorance, then the mode of ignorance is acting on you. Then you've just worked against yourself. And yes, once in the mode of ignorance, it's going to be much harder to get out, to make a choice, because your willpower is reduced in the mode of ignorance. I have a new name for this tea. I call it Nasty. There's a company in America called Nestea. I have a new company. It's called Nasty because it tastes nasty. Would you like a cup of nasty? It's nasty, but it's healthy. Prabhupada said, if the medicine tastes bad, it means it's good for you. So, the main answer to your question, Krishna Karshani, is you always have free will. What you do with it is another thing. If you whether or not, or how you choose to use it is another thing. You've probably heard the example. It was originally given by Hridayananda Maharaj back long, long ago. He said, you make a choice to take a flight to a particular destination. And that was your free will choice. But once you get on the plane, your choices are limited. And you can walk up and down, you can read, you can watch a movie, you can sleep, you can chant japa, you can eat, you can not eat, but you can't change the destination. So That example, it's true, but you could jump out the window. Well, I don't know. You could have to force the door open and jump out. But so the only way that analogy fails is you still have, ultimately, you have free will to jump off the airplane. But generally, your free will is limited by the mode that you choose. So the analogy holds up for non-devotees. But for devotees, they could actually open the door and jump out. But it's hard to open the door and jump out, right? Isn't it? Okay, now Tanya is saying, I saw a verse from the Quran which is so strikingly similar to Bhagavad Gita 7:25. Here's the verse. Have you seen the kind of person who takes his own whims as his God? God has left that one astray, sending his hearing, sealing his hearing, veiling his heart, and covering his heart and covering his sight. So who can now guide him after God has withdrawn his support? Yeah, it's a great description. It's amazing. It's the same, more or less, 725. Thank you. And atheism is interesting because the atheist doesn't believe in the God that has the God who by whose energy he's covered so that he doesn't believe in God. Isn't it? Don't you find that interesting? It's Krishna who's covering the atheist. It's Krishna who's hiding from the atheist. So without Krishna, they couldn't be atheists. And it's Krishna who's giving the atheist all the philosophy and logic, or in some case so-called science, to doubt his existence. And if you're covered by something, you don't know you're covered because you're covered. And how can anyone explain to you you're covered? Because all you're seeing is the covering. And that covering is your reality. So I want to read one simple statement, and I put this here because I wanted to ask you a question. I was reading, I forget where I was reading this, a simple statement. Radharani cannot live without Krishna. When Krishna leaves Vrindavan, Radharani it appears she's dying. She can't live. So then I was thinking when I read this, here's a question that we can ask you. Can you live without Krishna? And unfortunately, to one degree or another, or we've been okay for a few million lifetimes without Krishna. And now you might say, no, Prabhu, I can't live without Krishna. But I was thinking it more in terms of, as we go throughout our day, do we sometimes forget Krishna? And the answer is yes. And that means, well, I can live without Krishna. In a overall framework as a devotee, we say, no, I can't live without Krishna. But in reality, sometimes we're okay without Krishna. Have you ever been in a situation, it's so beautiful, it's so nice, the weather is perfect, the ocean is aquamarine, the sand is white, the palm trees are swaying in the breeze. Everyone's happy, you've got your coconut water, and bing, you forget Krishna. Of course, you might say, no, I wouldn't forget Krishna. I would think, thank you, Krishna. No, but you know what I'm saying. Sometimes just things are so nice. Or maybe you've even consciously thought, whoa, it's so nice here. Even if I wasn't a devotee, I would be okay. Don't think like that. But sometimes that may go through the mind, some idea like that. So my question to you is, can you live without Krishna? And I hope your answer is no, but I hope you reflect on this question. maybe sometimes we're okay without Krishna, and that is not okay. Believe me, it's not okay. If you're okay without Krishna, you're definitely not okay. This is turmeric. Turmeric tea. Turmeric and something. Turmeric and cinnamon. What a combo. Austerity. Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. No, maybe we should change it to tapas tea. Yeah, tapas tea. And then the motto will be, austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. Drink your tapas tea. We get 5 tapasya points every day. Tapasya. Brahmacharyena samena cha. Tapasya is good. Okay, now I discovered something I didn't know. Most likely you didn't know also. Sita Thakurani is the wife of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu. Guess what? In Krishna Lila, Sita Thakurani is Yogamaya, just as in Chaitanya Lila, Sita Thakurani is Yogamaya, just as in Chaitanya Lila, I'm really getting space, just as in Krishna Lila, Purnamasi is Yogamaya. It's the same person. Did you know that? I did not know that. At Krishna's birth ceremony, Yogamaya gave many instructions about childcare to Nanda and Yasoda. Similarly, in Gaura Lila, Sita Devi would often help Sachi Mata nurture baby Nimai. Sita Devi and Sachi Mata were of one mind. Their life and soul was Nimai. Because of Sita Devi's pure parental love, Sachi Mata often chose her as the first person to worship Nimai Pandit during any auspicious ceremony. So that's new information for me. I'm assuming it's also new information for you. So now we are going to, I'm just going to check if you have anything, and we're going to start reading some interesting Leelas. Yeah, okay. Can you send that to me, Anandita? If you're okay without Krishna, you're definitely not okay. Should we make that a t-shirt? I think some of these t-shirts we have will be, the non-devotees will be like, huh? If you're okay without Krishna. You know, I have one t-shirt, Declare War on Maya. I was like, who's Maya? Is that Trump's organization or what is it? But then it's an opportunity to speak the philosophy to them. Okay, so now we're going to read some Leela. So for those of you who don't know, one of the gopis is named Chandravali. And Chandravali's service to Krishna is that she is against Radharani and Radharani's gopis. Sometimes these are called left-wing gopis, right-wing gopis, left-wing gopis. And kind of like inimical to Radharani. Not truly inimical, but for Leela inimical. And if Radharani finds Krishna with Chandravali, he's in trouble. So Krishna gets in trouble. Guys, if you get married, you're going to do something and get in trouble. Your wife's not going to like. Even Krishna gets in trouble. What to speak of you? So, the moment Radharani heard that Krishna was in Chandravali's kunja, her leftist mood rapidly heightened to the topmost degree. So Radharani's leftist, Chandravali's the right wing. Radharani and her gopis are left wing. This is called abhimana, sulkiness, and anger. In anger, she bit her upper lip and said, quote, "If Krishna comes, don't allow that ungrateful person to enter my kunja, unreliable person, because he's caught with Chandravali, and she's the enemy. So in Leela, all these, you think of Leela like a drama. Is Chandravali really an enemy? Not really, but in the drama, she becomes an enemy because it creates this tension that we're reading now, and this tension ultimately enhances the love and the bliss of everyone. So let's read on. Radharani speaks in this way, but what does she really want? She always thinks of Krishna and cannot tolerate the acute pangs of separation from him, even for a moment. But she says, don't allow that ungrateful Krishna to come to my kunja. This is mana. Mana is madness. Externally, she rejects Krishna, but internally, she wants him. Krishna is there in the heart of Radharani. The heart of Radharani is Sat Prema Darpana, the mirror of pure love. So Krishna is there, and he's laughing. So this is like all the arrangement of Yogamaya. And it's this mana, this madness, is just increasing Radharani's love. So the Krishna is in her heart, and she's rejecting Krishna. And what's going on here? This is the madness of love. And you remember we had spoke a few days back about the gopis having husbands who are not actually their husbands. So that was another arrangement to enhance the Leela, that they would have to escape from their husbands, and that Krishna could enjoy, quote unquote, with the quote unquote, well, Krishna, not quote unquote enjoy, with the quote unquote wives of other men, because that makes it more relishable. You know, guys, your wife, she's okay, but if you can get the girl next door, that's exciting. And it makes it more illicit if the girl next door is married. So it makes it more relishable. So Yogamaya is arranging all this because the position of the devotee is wholly and solely to make Krishna happy. So Yogamaya knows how to make Krishna happy, and these are the things Krishna wants. And if we can make Krishna happy, everything's good. If we make ourselves happy, everything's not good. We think, well, I'll make myself happy, everything is good. It's not true. But if you make Krishna happy, everything is good. And so the devotee, the real devotee, the one who has no material contamination, their whole being, there's nothing in their being other than to make Krishna happy. There's nothing in their heart other than to make Krishna happy. There's no thought in their mind other than to make Krishna happy. That's what it means to be Krishna conscious. And in making Krishna happy, they're in ecstasy. And that's all they do, and that's all they want to do. That's it, right? So whenever you see a Leela where it looks like Krishna's being chastised by a gopi, and I think the next Leela we're going to read is Vishaka just lays into Krishna. Whenever you see this, you should understand it's being arranged by Yogamaya, and the devotee would never do anything other than what they know would make Krishna happy, because their existence is only to make Krishna happy. There's nothing in them that's independently trying to be happy. Unlike us, we're always independently trying to be happy. And if we can bring Krishna into the picture, well, I had a good day today. What did you do? Well, I was enjoying like anything, but I fit Krishna into the picture. Somehow or other, we stuck him in there. Yeah, that's a good day for us. But for a pure devotee, there's no sticking him in there. It's the only thing in there. There's nothing else getting in the way. And so we have all these other things getting in the way, like our big ego and our desire to want this, enjoy this, have this, destroy this person, compete with this. It's like all these things are just getting in the way of making Krishna happy. Well, I don't really know if I'm ready to surrender now because it's so hard. And I have so many desires. And may God save you. Pure devotional service means the only desire is I want to please Krishna. I want to make Krishna happy. I was thinking something yesterday. I don't know if I ever told you this, but once I did a guided meditation. You know how in the second canto of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada talks about how if you just use your intelligence, you can understand you're not the physical body because you're conscious of it, and you're not your thoughts. You can see your thoughts, and you get guidance from intelligence. You can understand you're not the body. You can understand Supersoul. So I took people through that meditation, but in a visualization. Be conscious of your feet, be conscious of your legs, and all the way up the body. I'd always say, you be conscious of. So there's always this you and what you're conscious of. So we're constantly reinforcing this distinction. And I said, look at your thoughts, be conscious of your thoughts. And then we went and said, okay, now or try to remember when you were 5 years old, and imagine like you're looking at your little 5-year-old hand and what your body's like, and you're in that body. And so we would take them through different stages all the way to the deathbed and say, imagine you have a day to live or a few moments, and you're lying on your bed. Imagine what your body would look like. And so it's kind of like you're watching a movie, but so you're really aloof from your body. And I say, now imagine you've left your body and you're just looking at your body laying on the bed. And now that's already been going on for 5, 6, 7 minutes. So they're not really in their normal reality anymore. This becomes real. And then once they're out of their body, we say, now imagine as a spiritual being, you are experiencing pure bliss and knowledge and eternity, and just relish that. And so after some time, a few moments, a few minutes, then we say, now come back into your present body. Because it's possible, I'm sure, in some rare condition, someone doesn't go back in their body. I actually got them out. I mean, it's not entirely impossible that could happen. They didn't actually re-land in their body. Anyway, it's never happened yet. I hope it doesn't happen. So I doubt it will happen. But someone said it could. If it could, yeah, obviously I have to have insurance, and obviously I'm pretty good at this visualization. If I could take them out of their body and they stay out. But anyway, that's another point. So we bring them back in their body, and then we just have them keep their eyes closed and just kind of reorient themselves. And then we have them discuss, well, what was your realization? Could you see that you're different from your body? You're conscious of your body, but you're not the body. And you know what most of them said? It was so interesting, and I didn't expect it. They said, the best part of this exercise was when I was out of the body. And when you said, now it's time to come back in the body, I didn't want to go back into it. Isn't that interesting? These are people who don't know anything about Krishna consciousness the first time. And rather than tell them they're not the body, I wanted to see if I could give them an experience that they're not the body. I don't think they all said that, but a lot of them said that. Yeah, because I said, now you're out of the body, you're just pure, you're pure spirit, light, bliss, conscious. And they must have got this sense that when they were going into the body was full of ignorance, full of desire, full of pain, anxiety, stress. They're all students, probably stressed out. And they must have just become more aware that now they're in the body with all the mental anxiety. So I was thinking yesterday, that being true, my wife and I were on a walk, and I said, wouldn't it be nice to be out of the body, have no desire, just be pure? She said, yeah. And I said, so, we could do that within this body also, but somehow or other we don't, afraid to. So I was saying, so, just pure spirit soul, no desire, nothing. Just completely surrendered to Krishna. And so when you think of it outside the body, it makes sense. But when you think of it subjectively inside the body, no, surrender, it's too hard. I got to take it slow. I can't do this. I can't. So I said, well, if you would be ecstatic out of the body without any material desire, then why not, when we're in the body, why not just realize that that's would be better? Does that make sense to you? If that's actually true, even a non-devotee would experience bliss without any desire. That's a happier state. So then why would we think surrender is going to make us unhappy? When if we were out of the body with no desire, we would be happy. If we surrender, our only desire is for Krishna, so why wouldn't we be happy? Of course we'd be happy. Much happier, right? So anyway, going back to the Leela, the devotee, the only goal of the life of a devotee is to make Krishna happy. That's it. There's nothing else in them. Just like for a materialist, our only desire is to make themselves happy or make their family happy or their community happy. The only desire of a devotee is to make Krishna happy. That's it. There is no other desire. So whatever a devotee does, even if it looks like they're chastising Krishna, they're not. And in this next story, you're going to get to hear Lalita chastising Krishna. So there's this discussion going on because Krishna was caught with Chandravali, and now Radharani's really mad, and Vishaka is really mad because Radharani's mad, or Radharani is everything for her. Radharani is her most worshipful Lord, Queen, Mistress. I don't know, mistress is the right word. She's most worshipful to Lalita and Vishaka, both Lalita and Vishaka. So they're really upset because Radharani's upset. So this is what they're saying. So, you remember what Radharani was saying. If Krishna comes, don't allow that ungrateful person to enter my kunja. And then they say, yes, we're not going to allow that ungrateful wretch into this kunja of our Saki. We won't allow him. So Vishaka and Lalita, they went outside to guard the kunja in case Krishna's coming. And then Krishna came. He was running. So he's approaching the kunj, and he sees Lalita and Vishaka there, like Jai and Vijay. And they stopped him and they said, no admittance. Get out of here. Unreliable person. Our prana saki, that's our friend who's our life, that's Radharani. Dearmost friend, decorated this kunja so nicely. Where were you? Why are you coming here now? Whoa, heavy. So Krishna is very humble, folds his hands, and he begins to petition them. Please excuse me, I'm a great offender. Please report to your Saki that I'm here and I'm begging to be excused. And Vishaka and Lalita, they don't allow him to enter. Vishaka was very angry. Now, Lalita, she was a little softer, and so she went into the kunja. And Radharani was crying, hanging her head, and the whole ground was wet from her tears. And it was so wet, the ground was muddy. And she was writing something on the ground with her finger, with her left hand. And so then Radharani sees Lalita, and she says, Radharani says, has my prana balabha come? That prana means life, my dear life. The one who's dear to my life, has he come? Has the Lord of my heart, Krishna, arrived yet? And then she went into this mood of sulkiness and she said, why should Krishna come to me? I am ill-fated. There's so many beautiful ladies ready to give him pleasure. This is like she's like denigrating herself. Angels of heaven are there. They're all very eager to get Krishna to give him pleasure. So be it. So she's going through this ecstatic madness. Let him accept their worship and be happy. I don't know why a humble woman like me gave everything to him. I gave him my life and soul and loved him with all my heart. I don't know why. Now I'm burning in this blazing fire of separation. Let me be burnt to ashes, but let him be happy. Whoa. You want to know what, talk about love. What is love? Now you're understanding what love is. Radharani became like a mad woman. And so when Lalita saw this, she couldn't say anything. And then she just came back out. And then Krishna saw her, and Krishna said, oh, Lalita, you have to see, you have to see I'm a great offender. And I know your Saki has developed great sulkiness. I realize that, but I have this faith. If you allow me to enter the kunja, I'm sure when your Saki sees my form, all her sulkiness will vanish in a moment. Now listen to this, everyone. Fasten your seatbelts. Vishaka became angry. You cheater, what are you saying? Seeing yourself, seeing your form, you think my Pranasaki will forget everything and become your mate. So get out of here. Get out. Ha ha ha. Don't you feel ashamed to say such a thing? What is this? Are you greedy for her love, or is she greedy for your beautiful Shama Sundar form? I think you have forgotten that although you are Madan Mohan, the enchanter of Cupid, my Saki is Madan Mohan Mohini, the enchantress of Madan Mohan. Is our Saki greedy for your beauty, or are you greedy for her love? All I know is that one day you will have to cry and cry. I tell you, Krishna, you will have to cry for her love. Now get out of here. Wow. Wow. Krishna became disappointed. He could not understand what to do. So he left and went to the bank of the Jamuna. And he removed all his nice garments. Throwing them away and rolling in the sand, Krishna began to cry. Now Krishna is morose. Only these words came out from his mouth. Radhe Parao Madhuripur Kaman. Radhe Parao Madhuripur Kaman. Oh, Radha, please fulfill the desire of the enemy of Madhu Daitya. Although Krishna is self-satisfied, Atmarama, still he desires to be with Radharani. Why are we reading these pastimes? Just to show you this is all organized. This is all being organized by Purnamasi. Purnamasi is Yogamaya, and she arranges all the leelas in Brajabhumi. The activities of Yogamaya are so wonderful that sometimes even Krishna cannot understand them. I want to read that again. The activities of Yogamaya are so wonderful that even Krishna sometimes cannot understand them, which is really interesting because Krishna empowers, and now Yogamaya is doing something that he's empowered her to do that he himself can't understand. That's interesting. Although Purnamasi Devi knows everything, still, when she saw the condition of Krishna, she said, my dear boy, what has happened to you? So now even Yogamaya is becoming bewildered by her own potency. Things are getting really strange, aren't they? Krishna empowers Yogamaya. She does things that he doesn't understand. And now she's looking at Krishna and she's not understanding. Getting interesting. After Krishna had revealed everything before Purnamasi, she said, these things are not unknown to me. I have already sent Vrinda Devi to make some arrangement for your union with Srimati Radharani. In other words, she's saying, she's she's looking at Krishna saying, I'm not saying, oh my God, what happened to you, but something like that. I don't think you say, oh my God, in front of Krishna. Maybe you do. Purnamasi says, oh my God, she's seeing Krishna in this condition. Doesn't understand. But then she says, Krishna explains, and she says, yes, I know because I've arranged all this. And right now I'm arranging that Vrinda Devi is there in the Kunj, and she's going to fix everything. And soon you will have your union with Radharani. So, as I've often said, movies, Bollywood, Hollywood movies, they always have suspense and complexity, and you have so many obstacles to deal with. That's what makes it a good movie, amongst other things. So Krishna Leela is like that. There's all these if Krishna can just go and see Radharani, it's like, big deal. But if there's obstacles to it, if there's intense emotions on both sides, then the rasa becomes cooked up, like sweeter and sweeter, thicker and thicker. So that's why Purnamasi arranges all these things. Krishna comes late, he's caught with Chandravali, he gets chastised, Radharani is angry at him, Krishna is begging forgiveness, and finally this arrangement for them to meet. So, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, this is what's going on in the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is the reality. What's going on here is not the reality, although it may seem that way. And the more you meditate on the Leela, the more interesting your life becomes, because you start to understand, oh, this is what goes on eternally in the spiritual world. The people aren't like going to work in a factory and, trying to enjoy and, getting divorced and paying alimony and getting fired from their jobs and getting coronavirus and, demonstrating on the street. And this is not what goes on there. This is not reality here. I wanted to take these pills before class because they actually help me concentrate. I actually give better classes when I take these pills. These are amino acids. Can amino acids help someone give a better class? Apparently, yes. Can amino acids help someone who gives a bad class give a good class? I don't think so. They're not that potent. I have to take 5 of these, and they get caught in the throat quite easily. Okay, I'm going back to see if you're all still alive. You haven't fainted? Yeah, looks like you're all fainted now. I see no comments. This Leela has stunned you. So, you want to read some more? Get stunned some more. This is another Leela, but it shows, we're going to read some more Leelas that show the actions of Yogamaya. But the kind of the culmination of this was after Krishna, told Purnamasi's like, what's going on here? Krishna tells her, and she says, yes, I know. I arranged it all. Apparently, she'd never seen Krishna before in such a pitiable condition, because she was like, what happened? She was even bewildered. But at the same time, she had arranged all these Leelas. So now you understand something about Krishna Lila, that if there's pain, if there's separation, if there's madness, if Radharani's chastising Krishna, this is all coming from the transcendental position. And when Vishaka and Lalita chastise Krishna, it is all out of love for their pranasaki, Srimati Radharani. Now, this is another interesting thing. This next section describes how sometimes the Brajbasis actually understood that Krishna was God. And normally we hear that they didn't, because that would ruin the Leela. But there's an explanation that they did. And I wanted to share it with you. It's very interesting. Radharani said, in Purva Leela, in previous pastimes, your master, they're talking to Krishna, in previous pastimes, your master or friend was Rama. Actually, I'm not sure who they're talking to. Anyway, the point is, they're talking about Krishna, and they're saying, in previous pastimes, your friend was Rama, and in another pastime, Vamana. And so now, this is like contrary to everything we've heard, because it means they understood that Krishna is the supreme. But we always hear that they don't know. So how is it that they know and they don't know? So, fortunately, the Acharyas have answered this question. Would you like to hear the answer? When the gopis and Radha are united with Krishna, they forget that who he is. So we understand that. If they didn't forget, then how could they have a union? You know, that kind of like embrace Narayan and dance with him. That's not exactly what happens. So how is it that they don't know? Well, if they know, we know the philosophy. If they know, then it becomes service and awe and reverence, and then it becomes tainted by awe and reverence, and the intimacy of love and the intensity of love will not manifest. So this is all done by Yogamaya. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When they're feeling acute, this is the commentary of the Acharyas, when they're feeling acute pangs of separation, this understanding that he's God sometimes comes up. Isn't that interesting? Did you know that? So Radharani is, in this Leela, is feeling acute pangs of separation. And she's describing Krishna as being Rama and Vamana. And maybe you've heard this Leela or read this Leela, and we're wondering, how is it that she's describing Krishna as Rama or Vamana? She doesn't know who Krishna is. At least that's what we generally are told. So the Acharyas give this example. If you, I don't know, we have to take time to kind of understand this example. So you fill a pot up with milk, and then you're boiling the milk. And what they do is they put straw in the milk, little pieces of straw or grass, before it boils, and then it goes under the foam. It's not visible, but when the milk is boiling, the straw starts going up and down. And then you sometimes see it. So it said the gopis' feelings of separation is like the heat, and their hearts are boiling. And so sometimes this understanding is expressed. I guess you see, sometimes you see the grass and sometimes you don't. Hey Bhagavan, hey Ram, your friend was Ram, your friend was Vamana. Another yuga, that means Lord Vishnu. So the milk is boiling and the straw is coming up and it's going back down. And so, and if you think, let me take the straw out, no, the straw goes back down. It's just on top. So it just comes up, they see it, and then it goes away. Acute pangs of separation are like heat, and the heart is boiling, boiling, boiling. So then the idea comes up. He's Bhagavan. So only when they're having acute separation, boiling, boiling, is the grass. You can't see the grass, it comes up. So sometimes the gopis say to Krishna, there's a verse, I'll read the verse. Na kalu gopika nandano bhavan akila dehinam antaratmadrak. You are not actually the son of the Gopi Jasoda, O friend, but rather the indwelling witness in the hearts of all embodied souls. So, this answers the question, if you've ever wondered, or you don't have to wonder anymore if you haven't, when you sometimes hear the gopis speak about Krishna as Bhagavan, as Ram or Vamana or Vishnu, whatever. That means they're experiencing acute symptoms of separation. Isn't that interesting? Okay, that's so interesting. I'm going to celebrate with 2 more pills, if that's okay with you. The only problem is the class is over. Finally, my mind's going to really be tuned up when the class is over. So maybe you can ask some really difficult questions, now that my mind is really clear. I have a suggestion for you. If I were you, I would go back to Godhead, because this is a lot more fun than what's going on down here. Let me tell you. Just recently, one of our godbrothers had died. And you know, of course, it's not a happy day. But on the other hand, I think, well, if he's now in Braj, in the eternal pastimes of Krishna, it's a very happy day. You know, he doesn't have to live any longer in this material body, in this material world. Although he may want to live longer for preaching because he was a preacher. But Krishna may say, you know, I don't want you to live any longer in this body or this miserable world. Let's just come and join the Leela. So we are feeling pain, but they're feeling happy and to join Krishna's Leela. And we should be happy also to participate. And the other thing that it's nice to meditate on is that we're hearing about these Leelas, but we don't really have a clear idea, at least on the emotional level, of what's going on. And the only thing that I think that would help us is just try to think of the most ecstatic time in your Krishna consciousness, whether it was in the midst of an amazing kirtan, on a parikrama in Vrindavan, you distributed 5,000 Bhagavad Gitas one day, you met the President of the United States, gave him Bhagavad Gita. Think of something, your mother becomes a devotee, or your mother chants Hare Krishna, her last words when she dies. Think of something ecstatic. And multiply that by, let's say, 500 billion. And maybe that's a particle of the ecstasy that's going on in these Leelas. That's maybe some way just to kind of jolt us out of our material conception of what Leela is, because our experiences of this world, and our experience of this world is there are no Leelas like this going on. So what do you think? Does that help you? Yeah. Kishore Mani says, it's deep. Yeah. And better go deep in Leela than deep into Maya. That's what I say, you know. And it's good that the Leelas are deep, because then you can go deep out of Maya and deep into Krishna. Otherwise, you just kind of dive deep into, you know, whatever's on the internet, right? Oh, Prabhu, you got to watch this. It's so amazing. This guy is, this video was going around. My daughter showed me this guy was juggling balls, and the balls were bouncing on a keyboard, and he was playing a song, which I think it was bogus. It's impossible. But anyway, maybe he was, or maybe it was, you know. Anyway, it could have been faked just by, anyway. But whatever, it was like, wow, this is amazing. If he's actually juggling and the balls are falling on the keyboard and bouncing back up and he's playing a song. Yeah. I could watch that for hours. Wow, look at that. I can't believe he's doing that. And send it to all my friends and call them, you got to watch this. You know. So, you know, that's one option of absorption. Right? Okay. Indra Nuja has a topic, off topic, but since it's the end, we will let him ask. And since we don't always see him here, we have to let him ask. And since he's an old-time friend and book distributor, we have to let him ask. And since he's such a nice devotee, we have to let him ask. Okay, it's off the topic, but could you tell us the first time you ever met Vishal Prabhu and maybe a few stories with him? The class was excellent, as usual. Yeah, so Vishal is the devotee we're referring to. And he just left his body. He was living in Vrindavan. My first acquaintance with Vishal Prabhu was probably Los Angeles, 1972. And either I brushed into him or someone brushed into him, and he said, "Don't touch me, I'm a Brahmin." So Vishal was not completely eccentric, but a little bit. And it kind of was, I kind of remember him as very, like kind of a loner. I mean, he did his service alone. He'd go on, his service was book distribution, and he was the #1 book distributor in LA, and at that time, and he would just go out to Venice Beach every day, which is not like the greatest place to distribute books, but it's like where all the hippies were. And I think he'd just go on the boardwalk and distribute books. And nobody could find out how you know, that's not a good spot, and how, you know, Vishal was not, didn't seem like he was, you know, as dynamic as people like Tripurari or others, Tripurari Swami or others. Anyway, he was #1. He wanted to be #1 because he got the Maha plate. And we later found out that he was getting some government money. I don't know what, actually, I don't know why. Some kind of disability. And he was taking all that money and using that for book distribution. So he was #1. So it might sound like, oh, he had an ego, he wanted to be #1. I think he just liked Mahaprasadam, and he was paying for it with his welfare check. So he used to carry a book bag with him everywhere, had books with him. And the last time, every time I would see Vishal, he'd always have a book bag. He'd always have a book bag, and he'd always be telling people about Krishna. That was what he did his whole life. It's like when I saw him last, it was in Alachua, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. It's exactly the same. He's got a book bag, he's got books, and he's kind of like in-your-face type person. You know, he just kind of like, if he wants something, he's in your face. So he came up to me. He said, "Prabhu, you know, I'm not doing so well. Could you give me a donation just, you know, to help me?" I said, "Okay." And I gave him $20. I opened my wallet and gave him $20. I think probably all I had, maybe. And he said, could you give me some more? Is that all you're going to give me? So he was like that kind of person. So I just remember him as someone who always had Prabhupada's books and Prabhupada's heart. Yeah, there's this funny story that, he had a relationship with Prabhupada that nobody had. Like nobody had. It's like if you saw him interact with Prabhupada, you'd think, is he Prabhupada's son? Is he Prabhupada's grandson? Is he, it's like that. That's how he dealt with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was giving darshan, and he walked in with a tray of Simply Wonderfuls. And he just interrupts the whole thing. He said, we have Simply Wonderfuls for a Simply Wonderful spiritual master. It's like created a Simply Wonderful movement for all the Simply Wonderful. And just interrupt, and then he goes around distributing the Simply Wonderfuls in the room. And while he's doing that in the darshan, he's distributing Prabhupada's books to all the guests while he's distributing the Simply Wonderfuls. It's like, I never, ever remember seeing him ever not distributing books. That's just what he did everywhere, or not talking to people about Krishna. That's all I remember. So there's the icing on the cake. And he started talking about something about the Bhagavatam, appreciating Prabhupada. He said, you're so special. You write the Bhagavatam, and nobody could write like this, and these books are so special. Just glorifying Prabhupada. And he said, Prabhupada, I'm reading the Bhagavatam, but I don't have 7.3. In those days, there were more volumes. I don't have the 7th canto, volume 3. Can I borrow yours? Like, who would ask their spiritual master, can I borrow yours? Especially, maybe you'd ask me, but ask Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, take it. You can have it. He had that relationship with Vishal. And then there's one famous story where there was a lot of water and dirt around the temple in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was like, why aren't you all doing anything? Prabhupada was going out on his walk, and he was seeing all this. Why aren't you doing it? This shouldn't be here. These are messes here. Why am I the only one seeing this? Just chastising. He was really in this chastising mood. And every day when Prabhupada would go out on a walk, Vishal would be there reciting prayers, from Shastra, glorifying the spiritual master. So he'd be reciting, in Sanskrit or English, your goodness is met by us by the will of providence, to accept you as the captain of this ship over this ocean of birth and death, like that. So Prabhupada was in this chastising mood, and there's Vishal with his prayers. And Prabhupada said something like, why don't you do something practical? Because there's mess everywhere around the temple. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's seeing it. And then you have this disciple, chanting some shloka. I'm like, do something practical, I don't know if you've ever felt that way before, but anyway, I used to see, it seems like Vishal spent a lot of time in Vrindavan. He left his body in Vrindavan. He was there a lot. I spent time in Vrindavan. He was there. And like I say, he was he was very independent. As I remember, it's kind of like you couldn't get close to him unless he got close to you. If he wanted to be close to you, like to ask you for a donation or something, he would get close. But other than that, he was always kind of like a little aloof, a little on his own, kind of always busy, distributing books and reading Bhagavatam and like that. He was just very in his own universe, kind of, but Krishna conscious universe. Well, there's one story. He was reading in Prabhupada's books, it says like the wife should be chaste, the wife should be subservient to the husband, the wife should try to please the husband, the wife should be this and that. And so he said, Prabhupada, I've been reading all these things in your books. And he said, does this mean the wife should do whatever the husband asks? And Prabhupada said, and you should be so arrogant to think that way? So I like that story because it appears from what Prabhupada's saying in the books, she should just do whatever the husband asks, which is nice for her to think, but not nice for him to think, because those instructions were for her. And the wife should do this, the wife should do that. Those instructions are for the wife to think, I should satisfy my husband, but not for the husband to think, oh, it says here in the Bhagavatam, this is what you should do. So then become the dictator to enforce the law. Those instructions are for the woman. So that's why even those instructions are there, Prabhupada said, and you should be so arrogant. Those are for her meditation. I should satisfy my husband. I should be chaste to my husband. So, does that mean I can tell her, she has to do whatever I say, lick my toes and she has to do it? That was a kind of a perennial misunderstanding, at least in those days. Okay. I wasn't there when he got Srila Prabhupada's watch. No, but he had that relationship, like I say, like it's kind of like a grandson. So it looks like we have a little more here, so we're going to extend. Well, before we extend, let me just check my schedule, that I don't have anything scheduled. Wednesday. Okay, we're okay. My question disappeared in the infinite space of the internet, but I am curious to know your answer, so I will repost it. I remember I once had a very clear realization my soul was advancing way faster than my body and mind could. Special mercy. Seymour. It was a very unpleasant feeling. Does this mean in that moment I was trying to surrender more than I was capable? I have to meditate on that question. It could be. Like sometimes I say, like, the mind understands what to do, but the heart's like, nah. Or sometimes the heart wants to do it, and like, I feel like I'd like to do it, and the mind says, you can't do that. So it could be something like that. There always is that, there always is that juxtaposition between what I'd like to do and what I can do, what I'm endeavoring to do, but what I can actually do. So it's possible. Marco says, how deeply marvelous are the Leela, the loving pastimes of Krishna and Radha, the gopis, inconceivable with our experience, but perceptible in the heart of our soul. Vipralamba, fiery separation from the beloved transcendental Cupid, Krishna, has its own reason for being for the union, Sambhoga, which will reunite the beloved and the lover. Wow, Marco's very esoteric. Going back to your question, Christe, I don't know if it answered it, but I'd have to know a little more. But if that doesn't answer it, send me a WhatsApp message. And I didn't see the watch. Yeah. Prabhupada's is Krishna Karshana, it's so sweet. Prabhupada was so personal with his. Yeah, you have this picture of Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana, giving a fiery lecture, but that's his, I would say, guru persona, guru public persona. But he had so many other personas. And, Prabhupada was a father, grandfather, and, he was the age of our grandfather, so he often would treat us like the grandfather. There's a story. I told the story before, but I'll tell it now because it will go well with this Vishal story. One devotee named Kaushalya, she had learned Isopanishad, and she's a very good singer. And she had learned to sing Isopanishad, pronounce it properly, and she told Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had some guests, and he wanted to impress them. And so out of the blue, he said, Kaushalya, sing the Isopanishad, and she sang it. He was beaming. He was so happy. After she did that, I guess after the guest left, he said, come over here. So she came. And he said, come, come, come. And he pulled her over and just put her on his lap kind of and patted her on the head. He was so happy. So sometimes he did that. Okay, we're going to go. And I'm going to celebrate now by eating breakfast. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.